Okay, so we're gonna talk about stencil making. What I'm gonna do in this, for example, this is gonna be black and gray work. So in this instance, when you're creating your stencil, it's all about contrast. So your artwork you have to work on before you can even get to the stencil making. You're gonna want to print out first multiple sizes. Okay, and you'll take those pieces and you'll fit them to the body. Okay, make some different sizes. When you get to the size you want, then you're going to print the original. You can go off into your editor and adjust brightness and contrast. Okay, you're going to start off with a fairly light and keep bumping up the contrast. Bring down the brightness a tad and keep increasing the contrast, and you're going to print out okay, so you're going to print it light, more contrast, more contrast, more contrast. Now what I'll do is I'll use all these for references, but probably use the one that shows the most contrast without, because when you get too dark, then your black shadows fall into blackness and you can't find your edge. So I'm going to use that. So now we're going to go to taking this piece and marking off and mapping out and separating all of your hard edges, soft edges, highlights, etc. Alright, so now we got our art. We have our different contrast values. What I've got here is my second darkest contrast value. So you take your artwork, a hard pencil, this is a 2H, you want a 2H or 4H pencil, and Spirit Master paper. This is not carbon paper, this is not thermal-fax paper, it's not black, it's not blue. It's the old Ditto machine. You have a white sheet, separator film, and the purple waxy layer. Some people will take the artwork, lay it on top of the here, staple it, and then trace it. And what that does will remove that, and it will apply the stencil to this layer right here. I prefer to lay the artwork right on top. That way I don't have to staple it, doesn't matter where it moves. When I'm done tracing it, the ink will stick right to the back of here, and I'll be able to see where all my lines are at a lot easier. So the difference with, say, traditional, neo-traditional, new school, all of those basically rely on solid outlines. Gray work is more about contrast and values. So I'm going to do my outlines like the outside. I'm not necessarily going to run a line on every line that I create. I will outline, go around the parameter, I will go around the blackness areas of the eyes. Okay, wherever I see black, I'm going to go around that with a solid line. Highlights, areas that have pure white, I'm going to go around them with a solid line. Wherever the light, high areas on this where the light is hitting, I'll go around those areas so that I know that they are separated. The areas that are black that I've gone around the solid line, I'll then put X's in those areas, and that way my stencil will show that is blacked out. So I'll know to just fill that in black. The areas that are completely encircled that have no X's in it, those are highlights, and I'll put nothing in there until later. The other markings, wherever you have a definite edge, you can put a line on that. These are hard edges, where you go from black to a lighted edge. That right there is called a hard edge. A soft edge would be this edge right here. This is a brow, this brow bone curves. So we're going to want to show the shadow where this edge right here, you're going to make dashes or a broken line. And that will indicate where it goes from a darker value to a lighter value, but it will fade out. So you know not to stop at a hard edge. You're gonna thin that out. So you'll make a dash around your soft edges, a hard line on your hard edges, and I'm going to, where you see these, because this is a high contrast, I can see where my darkest shadows are at. Areas that have like these black pits, I'll just scratch those in, because that's all I'm going to do when I tattoo it, is just scratch it in with the mag. So you can just work in any dark areas, trace out the cracks. This isn't a soft edge over here, but it's a different value, this spot on this. So I'll just trace that out. Any areas that are different in color, I'll just trace them out so I know to separate them in value from this other area over here. This value will be different from that, so I'll circle around all of this so that it's separated. And pretty much you're going to hit every little thing you can on there so that you mark all the detail you possibly can. You don't want to just do all the hard lines and then try and freehand all the shading. The more information you put on the stencil, the more information you have to work with, a lot easier and faster it'll move along. Okay, so I'm going to finish marking this and then I'll show you the marks. Okay, so that's what you end up with. Now that might seem a bit chaotic, but it's not. Here's your, like I said, you encircle the blacks, you put the X's in, you know those are black. All these encircled spaces, they're your highlights. You're not going to do anything with that till later. The rest of these lines are separation. You see the dashed lines, that tells me it's a soft edge. Going over the brow, I have all this separation within separation because I have there's many values. Basically, as long as you just keep looking at your reference, you'll see what those values are. You just keep looking at your reference and you'll know what value you're going to put in. Once you get down to doing the actual piece, it's just a matter of comparing values. You start off with your darks first so that you have a basis to compare those values against. Lay down your lighter value, then lay the next layer of value, and so on. Work your way to the lightest, from black to your lighter values. That's how you work a stencil for black and gray. That's pretty much the same way for like any realism, whether it be color or black and gray, just because you're going to have so many different values, colors, areas, shape, contours. But that's the difference between something like old school, new school, that's just a simple coloring book kind of outline, versus something that's more realism based. And you want to cut your stencil out close to the piece you're going to use. You don't need anything else. Okay, now as you can see, depending on where you're putting it, a lot of places could just go right on. but this is a flat surface. Now if I'm going to put it on here, say next to this knee, it's rounded, plus it goes up, so we got 3 different directions for a flat surface. So as you can see, that ain't going to work. It's not going to go all these directions. So what you want to do is that was a little deep, but a few half-inch cuts, and now it's able to fold over. If I need to, I can put a little slit there, a little slit there. Okay, go all the way around with little half-inch cuts, and then that way it will mold to all those different directions. Dry fit it, go over the paper onto the skin, that way you know where that mark's at. Do the same at another point, and that way once you got your stencil application on the skin, you don't have to move it around and mess it up. You can just match up the 2 marks and apply it. Once that stencil application is no longer wet, you just feel a little waxy, tacky feel to the skin, but nothing wet. You match up your lines. Okay, and you have a nice, clean, sharp stencil. Nothing smears, and you just let that dry for 20 minutes and you're good to go.